In this video I will make the door for the display cabinet. So I need to measure the height. And I need to measure the width too. I will use a 2 by 1.5 cm strip for the piece in the middle of the door, the same kind of strip I use for the sides of the cabinet. And I will use some 5 by 2 cm strips to make the frame of the door. I will cut the ends to 45 degrees with my circular saw meter jig. I have pre-cut the pieces some centimeters longer than needed. First, I cut just one end to 45 degrees, both in the long sides and in the short sides of this door frame. Maybe using this jig is not a safe way to cut, so I make sure I am not behind the saw. And when I cut, I make sure the back of the saw disc doesn't reach the strip. And I hold the saw firmly with both hands until the saw disc stops before I move away the circular saw. And there I have all 4 pieces with a 45 degrees cut in one end. Now I have to make the 45 degrees cut in the other end of all 4 pieces. I mark the length in the short pieces, but I will cut them a couple of millimeters shorter. If you want to work safe, it is more safe to buy a meter saw. I will try to adjust my cut to that mark. I clamp the workpiece and I put a stop block against it. I cut that piece and I check if it fits nicely in the door hole in the cabinet. If it fits nicely, then I put the other piece against the stop block and I cut it. Both pieces should be exactly the same length. Now I mark the length of the long pieces and I cut them a couple of millimeters shorter. The same I did before, I use a stop block to cut both pieces exactly to the same length. And there I have all 4 pieces I need to make the frame. I sand the cuts and I check how they will fit together. I still have to cut the strip that I will put in the middle. First, I put the frame pieces together with a strap clamp, but without glue, just to make sure that this door will have the dimensions I want, and to make sure that it will be a perfect rectangle. I make a mark in the middle inside the short pieces, and I draw the vertical line in both pieces. I measure the length I need to cut the piece, and I mark that length in the strip I want to cut. The truth is that I mark it a couple of millimeters longer. I mark it 2 millimeters longer because I want to cut it, and then I will trim it with the crosscut jig until it fits perfectly in the window of the cabinet. I turn the pieces and I mark them with letters, just to make sure I will not make any mistake when I put them together. I clamp the base of the drill press to my workbench. I loosen the screw that anchors the head of the drill to the vertical column, and I turn the head of the drill. I turn the drill press table and I put it in vertical. With the help of a long drill bit, I put the table as vertical as I can. I install a 6 mm drill bit in the chuck. I already have a depth stop in that drill bit, so I don't need to adjust the drill press depth stop. This easy to make jig will help me to keep the strip in vertical. I clamp the jig and the strip, and I drill both ends of the strip. I mark the point where I need to drill in the short pieces of the door, the same I did when I made the sides of the cabinet. And I drill the holes. My first intention was to reinforce the meter joints with some dowels, but it was impossible to me to align the hole. In the next video I will show how I use the circular saw to cut some slots to reinforce the meter joints with splines. Now I just glue all the parts of the window. I adjust all the corners and I check that all the measurements are right. I clamp all the pieces with my strap clamp, and I use some blocks and clamps to make sure that both parts in the joints will stay at the same level. I use some pieces of newspaper to make sure that the blocks won't get glued to the door. Now I screw this strip to this white board. This strip and the door pieces are the same thick, and I clamp the door. The first thing I do is to round the top edge. I need to round this because of the system I will use to open this door. In another video I will show how I hide the door inside the cabinet when I open it, like a barrister door. Now I route the same molding I routed in the cabinet sides, with the same router bit I showed in that video. I turn the door, I clamp it, and I mark in the corners the width of the glass rabbet. And I mark that width in one side too. I push the router until the bit slightly touches that strip. And I adjust the router depth stop. I install the router fence, but it happens to be taller than the door. So I put a couple of strips under the door, but the ends must not protrude the short side. I adjust the fence so that the router bit edge can cut until the mark I made in the long side of the door, and I route the glass rabbets. The door sides are wide enough to act as a good base for the router. If they were not that wide, I would have put another strip on that one that I have screwed to the whiteboard. I still have to cut the corners with a chisel, but it is easier than when I did that in the sides of the cabinet. In the next video I will reinforce the corners with splines. Thanks for watching. You can find all my woodworking videos in my YouTube channel, and if you like my videos, thanks for subscribing to my channel.